When I look back now, I sometimes wonder how a single evening could twist into something that would alter the way I saw my marriage, my friendships, and myself. At the time, it was meant to be nothing more than a dinner party, a casual night filled with food, laughter, and maybe a few too many glasses of wine. But when another couple joined in, things spiraled into a storm I never saw coming. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 34, married to my husband Daniel for 8 years, and we live just outside of Austin, Texas. Daniel is the kind of man people naturally trust. Charming, easygoing, with a smile that softens even the coldest of strangers. I, on the other hand, have always been the planner, the organizer, the one who makes sure the bills are paid and the dinner parties are stocked with the right wine. In short, Daniel was the heart and I was the mind. Together, we balanced each other well, or at least that's what I used to believe. The evening in question started off simple. We'd invited our close friends, Megan and her husband Ryan, over for dinner. Megan had been one of my closest confidants since college, and though Ryan could be a bit aloof at times, I trusted him. The four of us had done countless dinners together, sharing stories of work stress, family drama, and vacation dreams. That night was supposed to be no different. But then Daniel mentioned that his colleague from work, Jason, and his wife Claire, might stop by. I didn't know them well, though I'd met them briefly at a company holiday party. Jason was tall, confident, with a booming laugh, while Claire carried herself with elegance, the kind of woman who always seemed to have everything perfectly in place. At first, I hesitated. Inviting another couple into what was usually our intimate circle felt a little intrusive, but Daniel insisted, and I, not wanting to seem rigid, agreed. The night began with the smell of garlic butter wafting through our kitchen, the clinking of glasses, and the hum of conversation. Megan and I caught up over appetizers while the men clustered around the living room, talking sports and work. When Jason and Claire arrived, the energy shifted. Suddenly the room felt fuller, louder, more alive. Jason had a way of commanding attention, cracking jokes that made even quiet Ryan laugh. Claire, with her poised but approachable nature, drew Megan in almost immediately. At first, everything seemed perfect. We ate, we laughed, and the hours slipped by. But somewhere between the second bottle of wine and dessert, I began to notice little things, subtle glances, lingering touches, comments that seemed to skate just on the edge of inappropriate. Daniel laughed a little too hard at Claire's jokes. Jason brushed Megan's hand when passing the dessert tray. Even Ryan, who normally sat quietly, seemed emboldened by the night, joining in with more energy than usual. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself I was reading too much into things. After all, adults can joke, can laugh, can even flirt a little without it meaning anything, right? But as the night wore on, the boundaries began to blur further. At one point, Megan leaned close to me and whispered, "Is it just me, or is this getting strange?" I gave a tight smile, not wanting to admit I felt the same. The atmosphere had shifted from casual to charged, as though an invisible current ran through the room, drawing us all into something none of us had planned. The turning point came when the group moved out to the patio. The Texas night was warm, the cicadas humming in the background, the stars scattered across the sky. Jason suggested a game, something lighthearted, meant to keep the laughter going. "Truth or dare," he said with a grin, holding up his glass. I rolled my eyes. "We're not in high school anymore." "Exactly," he said, his tone mischievous. "Which makes it more fun." At first, it was harmless. Truths about embarrassing moments in college, dares to sing a song loudly into the night air. But quickly, the questions became sharper, the dares riskier. Claire dared Daniel to give his most dramatic impression of their boss. Jason asked Megan, who at the table she thought had the best smile. Ryan, in an uncharacteristic burst of boldness, dared Claire to dance dramatically to a country song playing softly in the background. The laughter was loud, but beneath it, I felt a growing unease. Every answer, every dare, seemed to push us closer to lines that shouldn't be crossed. And then, like a domino tipping the whole arrangement over, it happened. Jason turned to me. "Emily," he said with a grin, "truth or dare?" I hesitated. Everyone's eyes were on me. I wanted to say truth, to keep it safe. But the wine had dulled my caution, and before I could stop myself, I said, "Dare." His grin widened. "I dare you to let Daniel tell us your most embarrassing secret." The group erupted in laughter, but my stomach twisted. I shot Daniel a sharp look, silently begging him to keep it light. To his credit, he did. He shared a silly story about me once tripping in the grocery store and sending a stack of cereal boxes flying. Everyone laughed, and I forced a smile. But the damage had been done. The game was no longer innocent. It had become a tool, a way to push each other into uncomfortable places. As the night went on, the dares escalated. Nothing explicit, but enough to make the air feel heavy with tension. A dance too close, a hand resting a beat too long, a whispered joke that carried more weight than it should have. By the time the clock struck midnight, I realized things had gone too far. Megan's smile looked forced. Ryan's usual calm was replaced with a restless energy, and even Daniel's hand on my back felt different, possessive, almost defensive. The closeness that had always bound us as friends had shifted into something dangerous, something fragile. It all unraveled when Jason, emboldened by the night, made a comment that cut too close to the bone. He joked about how sometimes couples should swap just to see how the other half lives. His tone was playful, but the words landed like a grenade. Silence fell over the group. Daniel stiffened beside me. Megan's eyes widened. Claire laughed nervously, trying to wave it off. But the damage was done. The rest of the night passed in an awkward blur. Jason and Claire left first, Claire's face tight with discomfort. Megan and Ryan lingered only long enough to help clear the table before making an excuse to leave. When the door finally closed, I turned to Daniel. His jaw was tight, his eyes unreadable. "What was that?" I asked, my voice trembling. He shook his head. "I don't know, but it was too much." In the days that followed, the fallout was undeniable. Megan avoided my calls. Ryan barely looked at me when we ran into each other at the store. At work, Daniel kept his distance from Jason, their once friendly camaraderie now strained. Claire sent me a short message apologizing for the night, but I could read between the lines. She wanted distance too. It took weeks for the tension in my marriage to settle. Daniel and I had to sit down and talk, really talk about boundaries, about trust, about how easily something innocent can slip into something dangerous. We hadn't physically crossed any lines that night, but emotionally, the boundaries had blurred far too much. I learned something important from that evening. Infidelity isn't always about physical betrayal. Sometimes it's about letting yourself be drawn into situations where loyalty, respect, and trust are compromised.